After taking a random unannounced week off, Yellowjackets is back, and I, for one, totally do not mind this. I love when a show is just like, yeah, we're just not coming out this week. I don't know what I would expect. Maybe a phone, no, not a phone call, because that's crazy and I would never answer a random number. Terrifying. But maybe like a text or an email or just some kind of public service announcement on every bus stop in town. Instead of having the poster for Yellowjackets, just be like, we're taking a week off right in the middle. I don't even know why I'm getting angry. It's not like I prepare and, surround my work schedule and life schedule around, episodes of shows that I'm reviewing coming out at a certain time on a certain day. And maybe I wouldn't mind usually. I mean, not that I did mind, but maybe, I wouldn't have minded so much if last Friday, when I expected it to come out at 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, I just had so much going on that Friday. Like, I was like my mum's 70th, something I cannot be late for obvious reasons. That was happening in the evening, so I was like, 2 p.m, gonna be tight. So I'm gonna have to actually leave work early, which, turns out I have to start work early. And that means, starting work at 4 a.m, so obviously stressful and intense. Funny thing though, that's actually not that much earlier than how I usually start. It's unrelated. But I am, working very, very early to make sure I come back in time for a 2 p.m. start on a Friday to watch a show, to do a review, so I am in time for my mum's 70th, which, as I said, cannot be late for, obviously. And so it's not that I really care that it didn't come out. It's not that I spent an hour to 2 hours just refreshing Prime Video, just refreshing it every 2 minutes, getting on my phone, playing a game, trying to take deep breaths, glass of water, glass of another beverage that was definitely beer, and just clicking and just being refreshing and refreshing and refreshing and just being I don't know, why isn't it out? And then going, you know what? It's 2:30. Clearly, it's just going to be an hour late. It wouldn't come out at a random time, 2:37. Not going to happen. Didn't come out at 2. I guess it's coming out at 3. I don't know why. That doesn't really make sense to me, since it always comes out at the same time. And, but 3 o'clock. All right, so wait to 3. Just wasn't coming out. And then suddenly it got to 4, which, a lot of pacing up and down the house, just wondering why it hasn't come out. And I suddenly realized it doesn't matter if it comes out now. I have to watch it for an hour. I have to review it. I have to edit it. I have to do all these things. I have to upload it. And I have to, as I stressed earlier, not be late to my mum's 70th, which is fine. So, in the end, it ended up being pretty fun because I just had a bunch of pre's and listened to some Miley Cyrus or whatever, and some Dua Lipa, and just kind of calmed myself so I didn't rock up to my mum's 70th, a huge occasion, and wasn't just angry. People were like, oh, you seem like you're in a mood. Was work tough? No, work was fantastic. My other side hobby was infuriating because the show I wanted to review didn't come out at the exact time, and then people look at me like you're a psychopath, and you're like, I don't know what to say, but I'm furious. So, I calmed myself, listened to some beautiful music, and I forgot about it. And then, on a Saturday, I went to another state to watch my favorite football team play in their home state, because for some reason, I go for a team that lives in another state. So it was a whole situation. Then I come back a couple of days later, so it's Sunday at this point, and on Sunday afternoon, after spending 2.5 hours on a plane, which, if you've been on a plane, awful, horrible, tight, claustrophobic, just the worst thing in the world. And, I'm not afraid of flying, but I hate it. It sucks. I don't know why. It's just you can sit. I can sit for hours. I love to sit. I love not to stand and do things. I watch shows sitting, and it's my favorite thing. Somehow, sitting on a plane, hate it. I don't like it. And so after 2.5 hours of that, then I suddenly realized, I don't have a lift home, which means I have to catch a bus to this other spot, wait for a bit, catch another bus, walking, bus. Then I suddenly realized, my car's at my mum's because of that 70th that happened. Then I've got to get to my mum's, I've got to drive all the way back to my house, and then I've got to watch Yellowjackets. So I finally get home after just so much travel. I'm like, I don't want to watch the show, but I've got to do it before there's a certain time period where I'm like, I don't feel like people are going to watch the review, and I don't know, it's like a neuroses in my brain, which, would surprise you that I have any kind of, thoughts like that are neurotic in any way. But I was like, I gotta get the review out as soon as I possibly, humanly possible, due to circumstances in my life on the weekend, can. And so I was like, I gotta watch it, even if I want to go to bed. I've got to watch the show. And I turn on Prime Video. It's still not out, and I almost died inside. I swear, when I'm older, there will be like 3 years of my life I've lost from the stress and anger. I can see grey hairs that like have appeared due to how stressed and annoyed I was. And only then, only then did I think to Google, is it actually coming out this week? And it wasn't. And it didn't. I feel like I learnt a lot last weekend. I learned a lot about myself. And, you know, the idea of maybe just Googling things. You know, sometimes you forget that there's a thing in your pocket where you can just type in any question you have about anything that's ever happened or ever will happen. And some, well, not ever will happen. There will be some questions that we haven't even thought. Not the time for that. My point is, I forgot to just Google, is it coming out? In hindsight, I kind of feel like maybe starting the episode review with such a unnecessarily long ramble about, you know, something that kind of isn't related to the episode, probably not the best way to start the saddest, most depressing episode of Yellowjackets. This show is, I know it's about cannibals and survival and horrific things, but it never kind of has felt so sad and so upsetting and so just like not fun. Like sometimes, you know, even something really intense and moody and dramatic and gritty and dark and awful and like, ugh, you can still kind of have fun with it. Or at least kind of enjoy it and enjoy how kind of savage it is and brutal and all these things. This episode, not so much. So the entirety of this episode kind of focuses on Shauna's birth and the baby. And for the entire time, like she's giving birth, there's just like a horrible sense of dread and unease. Kind of just a squirmy, disgusting feeling like in your gut. Or at least for me, I just felt really off the whole episode because it's like, we pretty much know for a fact that like the baby isn't going to survive to like present day. I just feel like the way they've described like Shauna and her daughter's relationship, like we would kind of, I don't know, I feel like they didn't name the baby when the baby was alive during the episode, but there was so much for it where I'm like, I feel like I know that's not the baby because there hasn't been some weird thing about the dad and timelines. I don't know. I just knew that the baby wasn't getting off the wilderness isolation situation. And so the whole episode, as she's giving birth, you're like, oh, it's going to like be like a stillbirth. It's going to be really sad and awful. Or something's going to happen very early on. And then as the baby's born, it's like a moment where you're like, oh, it survived. And then almost immediately after it survived, you're like, but it's going to die. And it's just like really upsetting and like sickening and just, I don't know, just like a really uneasy episode that continuously just went, you know, like even that moment where like we have this terrifying moment where Lottie's like breastfeeding it and she's just doing that creepy Lottie stuff that's just ugh, ugh. And then there's a really like fist pump, like yeah, moment for Shauna where she's finally breastfeeding the baby. But I just kept thinking like every win with this baby, it's alive, she's breastfeeding. It just felt like these things where it was like teasing you because the baby's gonna die. And then my mind started really spiraling and I'm like, surely they're not gonna eat the baby, right? Like that's probably one step too far. This show is dark, it's intense. I don't know if it's that intense. I don't know if it's that type of show. And I feel like maybe that's like a step too far. Like once like a group of people eat a baby, you can't really side with them no matter what. Like even if they're like, oh, it's a possessed god, deity, entity that's making us all creepy and scary and we've brought it back with us as adults. It's like, I don't care. You guys ate a baby. Like so I felt like something that wasn't going to happen. So I was like, okay, at least we're not doing that. But I just still felt uneasy where I'm like, that baby is going to die. So every scene with it just really like upset me. Like all the times where it's crying, I'm like, oh, classic baby crying. Like that would kind of drive me nuts. And then I went, oh my God, imagine being stuck in a cabin, starving for months on end with a crying baby. Someone gonna kill the baby to silence it? Like, I just, there was so much darkness and horror and just, I don't know, it really upset me, this episode. Just this baby-centric episode. I didn't like it. Like it's, so let's be clear. I'm not saying I didn't like it as like an episode of television. It was very effective. It was very deliberate what it was trying to make me feel, and it was effective and well executed. I hated it though. Like I found myself not enjoying it, and like then it got to that point right at the end of the episode where there's that kind of twist reveal that everything's been this kind of hallucination or like dream or, you know, nightmare, I suppose, at the end in Shauna's mind as she's passed out mid giving birth and the baby never made it. And I just felt like at that point when everyone's crying and she just loses her mind and it's such an emotional, devastating moment, it was like an out of body experience where I just went, nope. And I like cut myself off emotionally and I just went, no, I in fact actually will not emotionally respond to this properly. And I just said no. Like I felt like that's a moment where like I wouldn't be surprised if like half the people watching like burst into tears of sadness and depression. Just, yeah, it's just so upsetting. I feel like my brain just went, nah. And I just watched it. I couldn't respond to it properly. It felt like so horrible and so awful. And just everything was like every single moment as I expected, but I expected it to happen much later. Like I thought the baby would survive episodes and episodes, maybe die in the finale or something like as a big kind of final moment. Like, you know, season 1, Jackie dies. Season 2, Shauna's baby dies. That kind of fits in my brain of like locking off the season with certain things. But for it to all be encapsulated in one episode, yeah, I found it too much. I did not enjoy it. Yeah, it was just, yeah, I honestly feel like I can't even remember what else happened. It's like the present day stuff with the adults. It's like, I feel like there's nothing of note that happened compared to how much the baby stuff made me feel. And like how, like, kind of, you know, like strong those emotions were as I responded to them. Whereas the adult stuff, I felt like it was almost like a breather. Like, yeah, just sit in the car with Ty and Van and they talk. Although, that one moment where Van's like, maybe I have given up with love. Maybe I'll never love again. And I'm like, oh, that definitely doesn't cut deep or anything. I don't relate to that in any way. Just, yeah, well, just a really upsetting kind of episode. Well made, but honestly, I feel kind of weird about doing such a rambly tangent at the start. But I feel like in a lot of ways, maybe I was like trying to avoid talking about Dead Baby episode of Yellowjackets. I feel like the only kind of silver lining of this episode, and it's kind of really awful to think about it in that way, but like the only thing that kind of, I don't know, it was almost like, not relief, because relief is definitely not the right word, but like the fact it died in childbirth like this, because the episode, as she's having these like kind of visions or like dreams or whatever you call them, of having the baby survive, like I remember thinking like there's a moment where Ty just looks at the baby as it's crying and it just kind of sent me down the spiral of like, oh, I really don't want episodes and episodes of people building up anger towards this baby and then someone doing something about it and like, you know, killing the baby, putting a pillow on it or something like that. Like, I don't know, the episode went so dark and I feel like it presented ideas and thoughts where it's like, how is this baby going to survive? Is it just going to starve one night and freeze? Like, will it be a kind of a Jackie freezes, the baby freezes, and she kind of loses her mind over those kind of parallels and all that. Like, there's just so many horrible thoughts. It's almost like, well, if the baby's going to have to die, childbirth, at least no one's going to kill the baby. They're not going to grow to love the baby over a season or half a season, and then it dies. At least it's done now. But I don't know. I don't even know. Now I'm saying that. Is that even a silver lining? I don't know. Is it worse this way? I don't know. I hated this episode. Not to say it was badly made. Not to say it was a bad episode of television, but I hated it. I gotta be honest. Really upset me. It's like one of those episodes of TV that's like technically good. Never want to experience it again. Ever. There's probably other things that happened or something that I should mention, but I don't really want to. Thanks for watching.